Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how are you doing?
Every time you say that at the start of the podcast, I keep waiting for you to say, here I am, as sometimes with Tom Orr, and they'd be like, wait, are you podcasting with other people? What is going on?
This is Tuesday's Tom Orr. Tomorrow we'll see Wednesday's. I don't know any W names.
Wendy?
No, it would not be approved. That would not go well. So, Tom, today we talk with Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, defensive tackle, nose tackle Robert Landers, quarterback Justin Fields, cornerback Jeff Okudah. Anybody else?
I think that was it.
A whopping 3 players and a coach for the bye week. But this was a bye week, and players weren't expected to talk this week, and so they were surprised when a few of them were asked, and they complied. And so this week, Tom, a bunch of reporters come to town looking for stuff to write about this week because, 1, you can't start Maryland coverage yet. 2, you can't start Rutgers coverage yet.
No matter how much everyone here wants to.
So then you talk to Ryan Day about stuff like, I think the Heisman was the big topic today because Ohio State may have 3 candidates. I honestly don't. Justin Fields is not putting up the numbers to kind of warrant a win. J.K. Dobbins might be. Chase Young is, but Tom, he plays defense.
He does play defense, therefore he's apparently ineligible.
And so that was really the topic. You know, Chase Young, Ryan Day doesn't necessarily bristle at Heisman questions, but just really wants nothing to do with them. You might as well ask him he'd probably rather answer like, "What's your favorite candy bar?" Then he'd be like, "Oh, now we can talk about this. We can get into this." You ask him about the Heisman, and he's like, "Well, it's nothing that we're even really thinking about. It's not really. We haven't had to talk about it." He was asked, would you mention the Heisman? Would the word Heisman come up if you talked to any of the 3 players today? He's like, "No," and it's almost. As somebody else also brought up the rat poison thing today. There's just really no discussion about the Heisman here, and that's not new.
Right. As much as they've been focused on one game at a time, 1 week at a time, and, the team and good, strong team effort and all that, looking a month and a half ahead to an individual award, I don't think they're probably going to do that, and if they are, they're certainly not going to talk about it. Just if you're not familiar with the rat poison thing, that was a Nick Saban thing a couple of years ago that all the positive coverage his team was receiving was just rat poison that was going to work against them, and they couldn't get caught up in all of that. They had to focus on the task at hand.
And Justin Fields was asked about it. He's not thinking about it. And somebody was even trying to say, do you think if you had a vote, would you vote for a defensive player? And Fields is like, I have no idea. He couldn't even formulate a thought about it. And somebody else was like, we want to know if you would vote for Chase Young. He's like, oh yeah, Chase is great. He's clearly the most dominating player in college football. But the Heisman is for us to talk about, not even us, because you know how we feel about it. But for other people to talk about, Ohio State really doesn't want anything to do with it. Ryan Day was asked, would you campaign? And he's like, well, what campaigning do you need to do at Ohio State, basically? You're in the limelight. You're on national TV every week. It's not like people don't know Chase Young. Mm-hmm. They're not going to – voters aren't going to suddenly vote for him because you send them a magnet. Last year and the year before, UCF's quarterback, Mackenzie Milton, right?
Yes.
I got a black feather lei and in the mail. It's like, well, first of all, I don't have a vote. Thank you very much, though. But it doesn't – that stuff doesn't really – I don't think it affects the votes. If you've adjusted your votes based on, something you got in the mail from a school other than a pancake magnet, mm-hmm. But it's people want to see Ohio State campaign and do this and that. But as Ryan Day says, if they lose, it doesn't matter. And if you do campaign and you lose, now you look like a complete idiot.
Mm-hmm. Then the story becomes they were distracted and worried about that instead of, if someone in the Ohio State Sports Information Department does happen to have one of those Orlando Pace pancake magnets or sitting around somewhere, I mean, we would happily take it.
Right. And we could send that out to a listener.
But we understand that, or we could keep it for ourselves, specifically myself. But we, like that was a very cool campaign. That was also 23 years ago. So the world has changed a little bit. Ohio State is on TV even more than they were back then. And, the world is a little more connected place than it was back then. So that may have been more of a necessary thing then to get, Southern and West Coast people to sort of pay attention to it. Yeah, like you said right now, like Chase Young's a national story. Everyone knows about Chase Young.
They were talking about him on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a big concern that Chase Young's name awareness is too low right now.
Chase who?
Yeah.
Who does he play for?
One thing that Ryan Day said that I saw a question on the board this week about this. Will Chase Young play offense? Will they stick Chase Young at tight end to, try and get him a cheap touchdown against Rutgers just to be a little Heisman moment? And no. That was Ryan Day shut that down very quickly. That Ryan Day's reasoning was injury, which, that would be a real stupid way to have Chase Young get hurt, twist an ankle or something while he's trying to catch a touchdown pass against Rutgers. But the other reason that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense is if Chase Young runs out there as a tight end in the offense, like, I think everyone's going to kind of know what's going on. So you're gonna know why he's out there. This is not like when the Fridge was out there and was a blocking back and a blocking back and a blocking back, and all of a sudden they gave him the ball for a touchdown. Like, Chase Young has not been a fixture on the offense, so therefore it would be pretty obvious what was going on if he went out there.
Maybe that makes him the ultimate decoy.
Oh man, that would be
like another former number 2, Downtree.
So, if it comes down to it and they need a decoy to beat Rutgers, then
boy,
what if they're up by 60 but they need a decoy to cover the spread? What about that?
Put Chase Young in there. Yeah, that would be entertaining. I don't expect that to happen because
Ryan Day explicitly said it would not.
Beyond that, you don't need him at tight end. Ohio State is tight end you. You've got Luke Farrell, you got Rashad Berry, you got Jeremy Ruckert, you got Jake Hausman. You don't need a 5th tight end. That's just my opinion.
And if you do, you have Cormonta Hamilton.
And exactly. So, but regarding the Chase Young notoriety, though, what Day also said is that he is going to have a bigger bullseye each week, just as Ohio State is. And you would have thought that there would have been a huge bullseye again on him for that Wisconsin game, but 4 sacks later, and you see what happens. I don't think a bullseye is the bullseye. You need more than the bullseye. You need the artillery.
Yeah.
It's not good enough just to have a target. You also need to hit that target and apply pressure to that target. And I still don't know that that's enough because he wasn't an unknown coming into the season.
Well, he wasn't an unknown coming into the season. He certainly wasn't an unknown coming into the game last week. One thing they talked about was Jeff Hafley after the game talked about how they moved him around a little bit. Like they know that other teams are going to pay attention to where he is and key on where he is. So they don't just want him rushing off the edge and just be, hand in the dirt, 3-point stance, rushing at it, trying to get around the edge of a tackle. They want, they had him stand up. They had him rush from different spots on the line. They're going to keep doing that because, number one, it gives him a chance to make more plays, and number two, it makes the opponent have to worry about a whole bunch of different stuff and try and change stuff on the fly. And if you put him, as a rusher in the center, you give a bunch of other guys a chance to make a play off the edge because they're going to have, they're probably going to adjust their protection to the fact that he is where he is. And that just opens up more stuff for other people. And he's so fast. He's so quick off the ball. I mean, there were stuff you can find that, you look at still frames of the snap and the tackle still in his stance, and Chase Young is like already across the line of scrimmage and getting right up on the tackle, and it's like you get no chance with that kind of get off.
Yeah, him moving around reminded me of when Will Smith would do that back in 2002. You move around, give a linebacker a look, and just going up and down the line, and just a huge pain to deal with. Jeff Okudah came out. Ryan Day said he's playing at a tremendous level. I'm just like, whoa, that's tremendous compliment. to perhaps the best cornerback in the nation, Ryan Day. Jeez.
He's pretty good at football, close quote.
Yeah, he's got good energy, and but that's Ryan Day, the tough love, as he likes to put it. You never see him like go too effusive in his praise, although he will with Chase Young, because you can't not. But even every time we've asked him about Master Teague, and I did it again today, trying to do it in a different way, because for the longest time it was always like, well, he's finally practicing, he's got to do this better, he's got to do that better, and it never really just ramps up the like, oh my gosh, this guy. There's really none of that with him, and you don't see maybe it is good, because then you think back to like Urban Meyer saying, this guy's my favorite guy. If I have a son, I'd want him to be like this. Benjamin Victor has as much potential as I've ever seen in a wide receiver that I've ever recruited. Jeremy Ruckert, same thing. And I think it helps the players. It allows us to maybe ramp down the expectations that we put on the players before they have a chance to even live up to them. Yeah, I mean,
there's a certain amount of the way that they're handling players this year and talking about players this year that seems like it may be addressing some of the issues they've had in previous years with what sure seemed like complacency right about this time of year.
Yeah.
Like this is when you had the Iowa trip. This is when you had the Purdue trip, like right about this time of year. And they have made a real point to, during the bye week, they don't want to talk about national championship. They don't want to talk about playoff. They don't want to talk about Heisman. They want to talk about, okay, so we went back and looked at the film of the time that we beat 38-7, the, purportedly one of the top 15 teams in the country, and completely shut down a Heisman candidate. And there's a lot of stuff we got to get better at, and focusing on the stuff they've got to get better at. And that's that's sort of always been something that teams would talk about, but it seems like it's more of a focus this year than it has been in the past. And maybe that's why you haven't seen the kind of like, complacency letdown kind of game. Not even that they lose by 30 points to someone that they shouldn't lose to, but you haven't had just the first 3 quarters of the Wisconsin-Illinois game where, Wisconsin ultimately lost that game, but it took a whole lot of weird stuff happening for them to lose that game. The first 3 quarters of that game was like, well, okay, every college team has one of these. You just come out a little flat. You're kind of mailing it in. It's like, all right, we'll kind of grind out a win and it'll be fine.
We've seen this happen before. We know how this ends.
Oh, yeah. And that one was the, 1 in 100 of those that doesn't end that way. But you haven't had that with Ohio State. Like, they have not, they didn't go into Northwestern and, okay, it's a Friday night and it's kind of a weird game and Northwestern's terrible. And so, okay, ho-hum, we'll kind of fart our way around for 2 quarters and then kind of pull away at the end. Like, there was none of that. It was just like, nope, into the blender with you, and next week.
Yeah, this is the first time since 2015 Ohio State has been 8-0.
Mm-hmm.
So they've seemingly learned from their mistakes and applied those lessons well. What Day also said is that the bullseye gets bigger for the team, which means they have to work harder and be more invested each week. But also they expected to be in this situation, so they kind of feel like they know how to handle it, because at this point everything is going according to plan. So the plan seems to be working, so you continue to move forward with that plan. And this week it's fixing little things and adjusting the areas where you need help and you need to take care of. And he said there's no one big area, and probably wouldn't tell us anyway, but you can look and see. I don't know where a big area of concern. What is the biggest area of concern right now? Is it pass protection?
Yeah, pass protection, punt protection. Like they've come close to getting. They had one punt blocked and have come kind of close to getting other ones blocked. I mean,
punt protection seems like it's easier to fix, though.
You would think, and they, with as much emphasis they put on special teams, I'm sure that's probably going to get addressed pretty quickly. Pass pro is, I mean, that's a legitimate concern, and if they're in a spot where they have to pass, and if you're playing a team with a really premier defensive line, Alabama probably is going to get some pressure on the quarterback if they play Alabama at some point.
But I feel like that's as much health related as anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not talent. To me, it's just a matter of maybe Thayer Munford can't bend that well right now.
Right.
You know, Josh Allaby is not available. So there's health concerns that make that maybe the biggest issue. And I don't know necessarily how you address it other than take some time off, get better. And then, obviously you watch film and you watch to see what you're doing. Day was asked about running back recruiting. And I posted today, I tweeted today, if in Big Ten play, I think J.K. Dobbins leads the Big Ten with 4 40-yard carries. Master Teague is second with 3. Justin Fields is tied for 5th with 2. Marcus Crowley is 10th with 1. And you've got all of this production. Master Teague leads the Big Ten in conference play at almost 8 yards per carry. He's on pace now in a 14-game season. He's on pace to rush for 1,013 yards. Day was asked, you don't have any running backs in the class yet. And he said, his quote was, I think you'd be foolish not to give Ohio State a look. But he also said that recruiting will be fine this year. And there are guys out there, but it has to be good for Buckeye fans to see the confidence that he has. And, would he say, yeah, it's a concern, we've got to find somebody if that's how he felt? Or do you believe him that he believes running back recruiting will be fine?
This is a different answer than he gave a couple months ago when he was asked about running back recruiting. Because back then it was, we don't really have an opening. Mm-hmm. And so, if someone goes pro, then potentially we'd have an opening. But right now we don't have a spot. It's probably better than 50-50 that J.K. Dobbins would turn pro after this season. So, the odds are they're going to have a spot, but they don't officially have a spot yet. But the answer has changed now to, look at the on-field production. Yes. You'd kind of be an idiot to choose somewhere else over coming here because nowhere else is running the ball like this. Okay, cool, hook 'em. And there are certainly targets that they have, looked at more recently, and then there are guys like Bijan Robinson, who's committed to Texas right now. If you haven't been following Texas football closely, things are not great there right now. They are kind of on fire. You are not going to believe this, but there's some questions about Tim Beck and whether he might be not doing an outstanding job with the Texas offense this year. I mean, set your faces to stunned there, but that has maybe not worked out great, and so. There are some options out there for Ohio State, and I think it would be very surprising if Ohio State did not end up with some pretty good running back in this class. And again, even if you lose J.K. Dobbins, you still have Master Teague, you still have Marcus Crowley, you still have Shields Chambers. I mean, there's plenty of talent in that running back room, even if they don't end up with someone, but they're going to end up with someone.
This may be something we say for a different podcast, but you look at Sam Ehlinger, who came in, started as a true freshman. What kind of progress has he made under Tim Beck?
Would you say it's like Taylor Martinez, or?
I'm just saying, you look and it's very straight line-ish as opposed to an incline as you would like to see in terms of improvement. And like Justin Fields, for instance, I don't expect him to be this as good as he is next year. As he's going to be better. He won't stay the same, and I expect to see him continue to go up because I have that faith in Ryan Day. We've seen the results with Ryan Day. Mike Yurcich is always able to produce quarterbacks, even if sometimes they're JUCOs from nowhere, sometimes they're 5th-year guys who have been sitting forever. He's kind of like Mike Leach, that way it's like whoever they grab, is probably going to do all right. But there are certain guys you just don't get anything out of them in terms of coaching, and we've seen kind of a large number of them come through Ohio State the last few years.
You've seen the difference between good quarterback coaching and bad quarterback coaching. You had Joe Daniels, who was a very good quarterback coach, and you saw the development there, and then he got sick, and they brought in Nick Siciliano, and then it was like, Terrell Pryor hasn't really gotten that much better since he's been here. And then you've had good quarterback coaching. I mean, I think Tom Herman did a pretty good job as a quarterback coach at Ohio State. And then he left, and then Tim Beck came in, and it was like, JT Barrett never quite. I mean, he got maybe a little better from his sophomore year to his senior year, but not, he didn't kind of leaps and bounds improve. And you have Justin Fields come in now, or you look at Dwayne Haskins last year, and it's just like you go from, he came off the bench at Michigan and everyone was a little nervous, and then a year later he's lighting the world on fire.
You know who wasn't nervous, though? Rashawn Gary.
That's true. Yes,
they were going to get after Dwayne Haskins.
They were going to get his posterior.
Yes, they knew 7 was coming in.
Yep.
And they were not worried at all. But real quick, to get back to the running back recruiting, you look at what they're doing this year. You expect that to continue next year. You maybe understand why some running backs would be a little put off by throwing for 5,000 yards last year.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing that was a 1-year thing. That was this is who our talent is, and our offensive line can't really run block, in my opinion. But
in the stats opinion, go on.
But it's clear, like, Ryan Day is okay with running the ball as much as Urban Meyer ever was, because you look at them and they're by far the best rushing team in the Big Ten. Now, finally, I think Louisiana Lafayette finally took them over as the top non-option rushing team in the nation. So it's you can't say Ryan Day just wants to throw the ball. It comes from the NFL, just wants to throw the ball 45 times a game, because that is not what this team does. And it's clear if the running backs are here, the carries will follow.
Well, just look at the plan to win. The plan to win involves being able to run the ball and control the trenches, and that is, if they have their choice of how they're going to win a game, they're going to win the game by running the ball. If they're not running the ball, it means they can't run the ball, and so then they're going to do something else. But this is Ohio State, and running the ball is always going to be the first choice. That is just in the DNA of this place, and that's kind of in the DNA of every college football coach outside of Mike Leach and a handful of others off that Hal Mummy tree.
Well, because you look at the weather that they had to play in. That's not a game you want to go in thinking, you know what, this is where we're going to throw it 55 times.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're Brian Kelly.
And, we'll save that for the next podcast. But, yes, that was remarkably asinine on their part. But, seems like a pretty good place for running backs, and maybe J.K. Dobbins getting that Heisman nod, even as an invitee, would help with recruiting. But even then, now you're talking that's like 2 weeks before signing day, the first signing day,
mm-hmm.
and a week and a half. So they're still going to have some work to do, but Day seems confident. This is a good week to get healthy for guys. They're monitoring reps. Justin Fields said he doesn't, while his back hurts a little bit, he thinks he'll be fine in a few days. But this is the same thing he said before the first bye week. He doesn't use this week to rest. He uses it as a chance to get better and look at what he needs to work on, watch film, get his footwork in order. But also, you're wearing a black jersey, dude. You're not going to get in practice anyway.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, let's calm down on the, I won't take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, he is not completely wrapped in bubble wrap, but not exactly at the. They didn't put a target on the front of that jersey, so I think he's probably going to be okay.
There's a reason after that first game against Florida Atlantic, he's like, "This is the most sore I've ever been."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to the real world. Getting the reps for the young guys is another topic that Ryan Day talked about today, and how much depth that has afforded them. Whether it's, you get Josh Proctor playing linebacker a couple weeks ago, you got Justin Hilliard doing it this past week, Zach Harris and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who were third-teamers, who weren't expected. They would get they were going to play this year. But when you're without Jonathan Cooper and Tyreek Smith and Tyler Friday at times, now those guys are second-teamers, and they're in there, they're playing fine, but that's not something you wanted to have them do without getting the experience beforehand. So they've been able to play here and there, but then when they're needed to be called on this past week and other weeks, they're not fish out of water. They know what they're being asked to do. And you're 8 games in, you're getting to that point where freshmen are no longer freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making the entire team deeper. Garrett Wilson, Ryan Day talked a little bit about him and his progression today. As the comparison that we made long ago with Chris Olave as he comes on later in the season. Although I expected Garrett Wilson to be like November Chris Olave in September. Maybe that was a little bit much. But you can see all of these young guys progressing to where when they're out there, it's no longer a surprise. And Garrett Wilson looking more and more like the punt returner, but Day wasn't quite committal. It sounded like, yeah, he's moving in that direction, but wouldn't give him the job just yet.
Yeah, he said the exact quote was he was making a big move to be the starting punt returner.
He said that before, though.
Yeah.
After the 52-yarder, I swear. It was a move. He said it was a move.
Well, this was a big move, so that seems
What was
bigger.
the last one?
I don't know. I haven't scrolled that far back in my Twitter.
52 yards is bigger than 22 or whatever.
That's true. And you don't need to convince me that Garrett Wilson should be the starting punt returner.
Sorry, Tom. I don't mean to yell at you.
This isn't on me. Why is this about me? There are a lot of those freshmen that are contributing and turning into not just depth, but quality depth at this point. I mean, I think coming into the year, you'd have looked at like a Zach Harrison, like, okay, you'll see him in the second half against Miami and, maybe some of those kind of blowout games early. And then, you'll see, and maybe he's going to, will he be able to get enough time on the field that it's worth burning a year for him and all of that. And it's just like, nope, okay, he's just throw him in there against Wisconsin and it'll be fine. No problem. And as many tackles as they've burned through on offense and as many defensive linemen as they've burned through on defense just because of injuries, it's remarkable how consistent the play has been. Like there's, Nicholas Petit-Frere at Northwestern. Okay, there was a step, there was a drop off in production there a little bit. And not everyone is Chase Young as a defensive end, but the production that they've gotten out of people who were like nominally third teamers like 3 weeks ago on the depth chart is pretty remarkable. And that's a testament to the talent that they bring in here, but B, how quickly they can get guys up to speed and the development of guys. Cause there's a lot of places where you can bring in a real talented player and it's just like, okay, well, they're just going to sit for a while because they've got to take time and learn. And especially as an offensive lineman, like defensive end, in certain circumstances, you can just, you're going to throw them in there when it's a very clear passing down and you can get away with just, okay, go get the guy with the ball. Tackle is not a spot where you can do that on offense. And they have not just played those guys in just pure pass rushing situations either. Like you've seen Zach Harrison out there all 3 downs. Like that has not just been a third and long kind of like rush.
He's a rotational guy now.
Yeah. That is pretty unexpected for me because he came in obviously freakish athleticism, but I think there was a question as to exactly how prepared he was to just immediately jump on the field and go. He has lived up to that and then some.
Yep. We mentioned Justin Hilliard earlier. I asked Ryan Day if they were going to pursue a sixth year for him because he missed his true freshman year and his redshirt freshman year to injuries. And he said that would be up to Justin, but they'll talk about that at the end of the season. I kind of think that would be a good move for both of them, for both the team and him to come back and provide some more veteran leadership because you're going to be losing some guys. Basically just Malik Harrison, but he's clearly a guy that they found a role for, which is something that Jeff Hafley continues to do. He talked about, well, we've always had this package. This is the first time we needed to use it. They've done the 4-4-3 here and there before, but you wonder, Tom, like what else? What other packages are there? And we still kind of waiting for the whole bullet thing.
Yeah.
But even Justin Hilliard talks about being in the bullet room, so he is a bullet. I think is he listed as the backup to like the strong safety / linebacker as it is listed on the depth chart?
No, that's still Jocelyn Went. It's still Brennan White and Jocelyn Went.
So I guess the Sams and the Bullets would be in the same room, but there's still more to come from Jeff Hafley, and you wonder, what is next. And the thing is, it could be anything because they have so many different guys that can match up. I mean, it's a good problem to have, and it's not even a problem. It's just a bunch of riches, basically.
It's a problem for us because we keep saying like, this is what the bullet's going to be,
yeah,
and then we're wrong because things have changed or we have not been given the full picture. But yeah, I mean, as far as a defense, like just to have the luxury of, okay, and now this former 5-star linebacker recruit is just going to come off the bench and start because the opponent is going to run a certain kind of offense. Like, okay. and then we'll put him back on the shelf until the next time we need him, and now we'll pull. You put 5-star Justin Hilliard on the field, and you took 5-star Sean Wade off the field. Like that was the big starting adjustment. Like, okay, and now we switch our 5 stars, and
now we'll also bring in our 5-star Baron Browning
Yeah.
to pair with him because we took out 4-star Tough Borland.
Yep.
So yeah, there's just so much depth there, and we're still seeing new wrinkles. Anything else today from the players, Tom? We were kind of just stationed at one table each, so there wasn't a lot of running around to the players.
No, Robert Landers has always had a couple interesting things to say. I don't think I actually told you this. We learned who Robert Landers' roommate was freshman year. Would you like to guess who Robert Landers' roommate was freshman year?
I will say Tate Martell.
Sadly, no. Although Tate Martell is always the answer, Tate Martell is in this case not the answer. Devon Hamilton was his roommate freshman year. He had a lot of glowing things to say about Devon Hamilton. He said he was asked who had a quicker get off. He said he did. Landers thought he had a faster get off than Devon Hamilton,
right.
But he said, just the combination of his size and athleticism, and Devon Hamilton is Chase Young's getting all the pub this year. Devon Hamilton is having one heck of a year. He's been a champion every week, I believe, right?
Well, we don't know yet about this past week.
We don't know, but I would certainly assume yes.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys where you wonder, like, he is one of the best defensive players in the Big Ten, but because he splits reps with 2 other guys, like, is he all Big Ten?
Yeah,
do voters even know about? Now you're getting into like the weeds when you're talking about offensive linemen and defensive tackles. Like everybody knows the defensive ends.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the way the voting is, it's just, I think you just vote for 4 defensive linemen.
Right. And,
so, it'll be like 3 defensive ends and maybe like some random defensive tackle like Raquan Williams from Michigan State or something because they know him.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not gonna end up with the stats that, so this is requiring people to actually watch the game and understanding what they see, which it's asking a lot.
Well, especially when you're talking about media voters who watch the team they cover and maybe can see some other action here and there, but you're not necessarily like, I couldn't tell you who the 2 starting defensive tackles are for Nebraska right now, and I'm not watching them when I'm watching Nebraska. Not that I get to watch Nebraska.
Right. Yeah, that's. I've never quite understood the AP poll or media voting on a lot of that stuff, because if you are covering a team, you are at the stadium for 3 hours before the game and 3 hours after the game, so you've basically missed at least 2/3 of the day of football action because you're working. And we'll have a game on a laptop or something in the press box to kind of keep an eye on it, but you're not watching a game the way you would watch it if you were kind of analyzing anything. You're just kind of keeping tabs on the score and the general game state. So, that has never really made a whole heck of a lot of sense to me.
Nope. Anything else, Tom, before we call this one a wrap?
I think we are good to go.
All right. Thank you all for listening. It's an odd week. This week we have one media availability, and that was today. We'll see what else comes of this week in terms of shows. But that's probably the gist. Maybe 2 shows, Tom. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, we'll see. I think this is our last media availability for the week, at least as of right now. Right. So we may not have a whole heck of a lot of new stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So hey, it's not our fault. It's Ohio State's fault for not having any drama right now.
There you go.
So and the men's basketball team plays Wednesday night in an exhibition, which you would need Big Ten Network Plus, which I was told is $15 a month.
That sounds like a minus to me.
Big Ten minus? Tom, all right.
Why give the Big Ten Network $15 a month to watch a basketball game when you can pay us?
Right.
There you go.
To maybe talk about it. So, all right, thank you all for listening. We will talk to you guys later.